Good afternoon or good morning, depending on your time zone. This is Jen Wilson with Leadership Lunch Chat, and I'm here with my really good friend, Amy Vetter, on this wonderful Friday in August. And we are streaming live to talk to you about leadership in the profession and leadership in our lives. Hi, Amy.
Hi, Jen. Happy to see you, even if you're coming out of your car.
I'm not coming out of my car, I'm
Or you're
deeply in.
in your car, yeah. Streaming from your car.
Well, I was going to stream from this fabulous setup that I had on like a rain barrel with a crazy table set up on top of it outside in the forest because I'm camping. But my my car wireless wasn't strong enough for StreamYard. It worked perfect for every other technology, but not StreamYard. So anyway, I'm now streaming from my car in the forest, and
Oh,
and so Amy and I thought today we'd talk about finding joy in the work. How can we bring joy in our lives inside the work we do? And how can we make sure that work isn't burden and obligation and drudgery and um, anxiousness and stress and overwhelm and all the junk that it can be if we let it?
mhm.
And how can we generate, find, sustain joy in our work? And so that's what we thought we'd talk about today. And one of the ways that I do it, I'm just going to start us, and then Amy, you can jump right in and start talking about how you do it. But one of the ways that I do it is I have been working a hybrid, remote, anytime, anywhere work style since 1996. And I fit my life into my work and my work into my life in a big way. And I bring my work to the things I'm up to, and I bring my fun into my work. And so, like, this is a blended day for me today. I'm kind of off. After this, I'll be off, but we're going to go for a hike and get lunch and that sort of stuff and have the rest of the day off. But I worked this morning and I'm doing this, and then I'm going to go do that. And so, blending the two and not trying to have hard boundaries. That's one of the ways I do it. What about you, Amy?
Yeah, and I think this is an interesting topic because I've had a lot of stressful things going on as trying to make work and life integrate. And it's also truly taking a look and being intentional. So even when you're busy, so in the last few months, I've been traveling for work, and then anytime I'm home, I've been moving, and I've moved like tried to move like 4 times. Long story, but finally done. But uh, it, knock on something. Um, but even with that, it's been really important to me to find the times where I can release because it has been extremely stressful. And the thing about life is you can't control it. It's going to happen. Things happen that you can't control. And it's up to us to be intentional about what we do to get our energy back or where we take a break, even when we don't have time, or to know we don't have time, but when we're going to do it. So at least visually, we can figure it out. So even when we hit busy times at work, when are you take that time for yourself, even if it's on the weekend, being with friends? um, you know, uh, for me, yoga or working out is a really important thing for me. So I've got to figure out, even if it's 10 minutes, it's a reset, right? Like, and so I think a lot of times we say, oh, it's got to be an hour, else it's not it, or, I don't have the time. But we can
Mhm.
usually figure out where to put it if we think about our week, if we think about what our day is going to be like, if we think about, okay, I know I'll be here or there at a certain time. So where can I fit it in? And it's been really important for me, especially during this time, to plan those things out. I always plan it out, but we get in modes of routine versus when our routine's just completely broken and we can't control it. And I think a lot of times when we talk about joy, and when you hear people complain about the things that are happening in their life, a lot of times they're blaming everything else for things that they could actually take some action on. There are things we each can control, but we choose to blame the outside and just say busy because we don't even want to take time to do that. And so there's always little steps that we can take or little hacks in our day, to reset, to make sure that it's not something from the outside. What can we work inside out to fix first, and take 100% responsibility for where we're at, and also to communicate, like, the last few months have definitely been emotional with moving my kids, at the moving into an empty nesting phase. I had no idea the grief, of selling a house and having the kids leave all at the same time. It was just like this major vortex that happened. But I've been very clear with the people around me that are close to me that I'm sad. And so I'm not trying to hide that I'm sad, and I think
Right.
a lot of times we put that expectation, on ourselves that we can't say it or we can't show it. I may not act the way that I wanted to act, and I'm sad, and I'm not perfect. And so giving myself that, um, transparency and openness, even to allow myself to say it, or vulnerability to say it, but being transparent and open to the people around me, at least they don't think it's them. And so it's really important we just think about how we don't affect other people's energy, even when we can't help it, when, we're in times of stress.
Mm. So I lost my mom, a year ago, June 11th, and I had no idea how brutal that would be,
Hmm.
and went on, almost a full year of, unintended sadness and grief, and
Hmm.
like uncontrollable, I guess is a better way to say it.
Yeah, yeah, you can't control.
Uncontrollable. So just being real about it with people helped release, release the obligation to
Hmm.
be, inauthentically
Right.
joyful, maybe.
Hmm. Yeah.
So, and that's part of the realness at work. So I want to pick up and just touch on the exercise thing. So one of the ways that I have found joy in the work is that I have blended, and you have too,
Hmm.
Amy. You have blended your professional gigs with exercise and started to bring people along, and
Hmm.
um, I would go, I'm a runner, and I would go out and run when I was at conferences, and I run at clients' locations, and I run wherever I am as long as it's safe for me to do so. And at conferences, I would just go out alone, and one day I got the idea to tweet about that I was going to go, and that I would meet you at the, MGM fountain at 6 a.m. if anybody wanted to go, or whatever, the MGM Lion down in the lobby. And I went down there, and there were 3 or 4 groggy looking people. They were like, I saw your tweet, and here we are. And I started running with people I don't know and with people I do know at work events, and it's huge. It's
Hmm.
wonderful, so fun,
Yeah.
and I've made tons of new friends, and I don't have to feel like I'm alone. Now, sometimes I like to run alone, so
Yeah.
uh, but still, sort of blending exercise with the work activities, and
Community.
not, yeah. So that's another one, and then I think my biggest source of joy from work are my friendships, and and the love and caring, and silliness, and sharing grief, and all of those things with people like you, Amy, and Caroline, who's running this. The people that are inside my convergence team, and all of our clients, and all these colleagues, other consultants to the profession. um, the depth and richness of those relationships, and how they have enriched me, and the learning and the love that I get from them is so huge. And I am so glad that I have um, chosen to invest in those relationships, chosen to build them. I've never looked at competitors inside this CPA channel as competitors. I just have never felt scarcity or fear from them. I have tried to find things that we have in common and places we don't overlap that I could refer business to them. And I just feel like a huge piece of the joy that I get in my work is from the love that I get from all the people and that I give to all those people and the caring there. It's just awesome. And I always marvel at people who, in coaching, I have to coach a lot of people to say, get out there and build relationships with your people. It's important. It's hard to have loyalty if you don't have a relationship. It's hard to help them with their problems. It's hard to have them tell you their problems if they don't feel related. And so a whole bunch of people in my work life that I meet don't have that depth and richness in relationships that I value so much. And I think everybody could benefit from that.
And we have to make time for it. So I think, sometimes we get so busy with the work that we don't figure out how do we make time for building relationships. And building relationships can be the most important thing that you actually do in your career. But instead, we spend a lot of time, just on the skill itself, or thinking we can do this on our own, or looking, like you said, at others as competitors rather than collaborators, because everybody has a different take on what they do. It doesn't, even if you're in similar areas. I remember learning that in my accounting business very early on, where, I started feeling like some people thought we were competitors. And then I'm like, but I don't want to do the work you're doing. Like, and there may be clients that I bring on that I would rather you take than myself, and so I really learned through, and I think one of the things as far as like finding fun in the work is making time to go to conferences and building that community and those relationships. That's been critical to my career life, because not only do you learn there, but you build friendships and relationships that last your entire career. And, it's always something where you're so excited to go, every year, because you're going to see people you haven't seen. Even if you see them virtually or on social media, it's still different than going to dinner together, or like we do, go to the pool. But just spending that non-work time where you're just humans and people and not necessarily talking about work, is really, really important. And I feel like it's a necessary budget item to make sure that you are spending time getting there, that it's not a waste of money. It's always hard to take time away from your family, your friends, your community, to do those things, but it's so worth it. This is how relationships get built, and you can laugh about stuff, make fun of stuff that you normally wouldn't do in your normal workday. That is a really important thing that gives you some levity in all the work.
And you can find people that are in they become your tribe because you're all you're encountering the same issues. You're running into the same problems. You're, you see the same opportunities, or you have the same questions. You're wondering about the same things. And out there in the world, when you don't go to conferences and you don't meet all those people that are like you, not necessarily identical to you, but very similar challenges, very similar opportunities. When you're alone, there's an isolation. I've got to figure it out myself. It's harder. It's just harder. It's not as joyful. And then you go and you go to these conferences and you're like, hey man, wow, we're all super similar. And maybe we could collaborate here and share and figure it out together. And so there's some sort of like relief in that when you first go and find out, like, man, I'm not alone. And we see this all the time in our young leader development programs. They'll come and, the first morning they're all sort of kind of standoffish and a little apprehensive and decently quiet. But as they start sharing, then somebody at some point early in the morning on day one will say, oh my gosh, I had no idea that we were all in the same kind of boat.
Right.
Like I feel so relieved to know that these issues that our firm is facing are not isolated to our firm. It's not about us, being singularly problemed. This is like shared issues, shared
Mhm.
challenges. There's some joy in that, even though they're not solved yet.
Yeah.
Just
And I also think just within your workplace, because sometimes we can feel like the workplace gets oppressive, or maybe we don't know what other people are going through, or even see them as human. I think it's really important as an agenda item in meetings is to be asking how people are, something fun they did over the weekend, like get to know the human side. Like your agenda shouldn't just be work, is really understanding what makes everybody excited and get to know people on other levels. So just like the example of running, when you find out there's other people that enjoy something you enjoy that you didn't even realize, or that they're doing on the weekend, that is like, oh, that's fascinating. I didn't even know anyone, else thought like this or enjoyed things. I've asked people in rooms and you're shocked at some of the hobbies they have of, singing choir on the weekends, or, refurbishing cars, or whatever it is. Like it's where they get release, or their hobbies, and you bond over things that actually help you in the workplace, or when you're talking about it, you bring joy into the day. And, going back to the blended work environment, I think a lot of this gets lost because people feel like, oh, we're not in an office, so there's not time for conversations like that. But yes, there is. And it's a matter of building it in, just like you would if you were standing at someone's cube or office, just in the morning getting your coffee and saying how things are going. How do you take some of the things that were great about the workplace in person and build them in to a virtual environment, so you don't lose that camaraderie and joy from just talking about something and learning about something that you're bonded about, or following up with something that you knew someone was going to have some big thing like their kids graduating or moving or whatever else that you could be talking about that isn't necessarily work.
definitely. And so our team, we have a few people who the work from home model that we have, which is work from home or work from a client's basically, or a conference. Um, they're kind of lonely inside of that, and they miss the social coffee bar scene. And so our team has a weekly purely optional coffee hour where they get together, and I come when I can, but I'm often traveling or whatever. But they get together and they all do a coffee hour that's like a coffee hour at church or something. I don't know what it's not work at all. No work at all. And we do a once a quarter brown bag lunch where we just all, and it's not always lunch because somebody's got a different time zone or whatever, but we don't talk about work at all there. And we go around the table, so to speak, and everybody gives a personal update. And, people are always like, I can't get to know my people that well when we're remotely. And I say, hey, I don't find that to be true. It's that intentionality that's required to do it. You have to schedule things, you have to cause them to happen. But we pride ourselves in knowing as much as we can about everybody's life and what's going on in it, and what their prayer requests are, and what their trials and tribulations and their exciting celebrations and all of that stuff. We want to know it all. And not just the leaders. All the team is trying to learn it about each other. And we meditate. We try to meditate together, optional again, but remotely. There's all sorts of things you can do to build that real, true relational foundation that's required for the joy in the work. I don't know how else to have joy in the work if we're all transacting. If it's all transactional, if I'm just trying to figure out how you and I can just get this stuff done together and then move on. Like there's a start and a stop. And if it's all just transactional, then I wonder why we're doing what we're doing. I do. Surely there's another way to, get food and water and coffee, than just transacting with one another. And
I agree.
I feel sad for people that don't get that you could really love your work and not always
and
love
you
every
can
bit of
do
it.
it if it's not built in as a process. And these are the things like, what can I control and what can't I control? We can all control asking these questions and creating this with the people around us until it becomes like a thing, right? Because then they're like, oh, this is kind of nice. So just because your manager, your leader doesn't do it doesn't mean you can't influence in the way that you go about your day if it's important to you and you've stepped back and thought about it and said, I need to make sure I'm doing this.
Yes.
Yeah.
And Amy, you are part of the joy that I have in my workplace.
Oh, me
So,
too.
and this Friday thing we do together,
Yeah.
it's such a wonderful way to process what's happening. And
Mhm.
I'm so grateful to you for that. And to our audience. So you are part of the joy in my work life also, audience. And we welcome your ideas for Leadership Lunch Chat. Anything that you're trying to process or grapple with, we'd love you to send them to us in social or reach out to us through any other of the connected ways we have and let us know what those are. And we'll see you again at a future Leadership Lunch Chat. Bye, all.